Mario's got this plumber thing all worked out, okay? Jump, stomp, fly, medicate. You throw a challenge at him and he gives a big grin and goes Not like Luigi. What a geeb. Can barely step out of the house without checking for predators, and when he does, he's so nervous he's slip-sliding all over the place. What? Now, why can't he be like his big brother? Come on, you've seen all the stuff out there. It's fine. Big, bouncy, colourful whoopee things. Jump on the head and they're done. Fought them over 100 times, and yet you still scream for Mario to come and pick you up. You big baby? Please. Please. What are you so afraid of? Oh. Every couple of years, I send poor Luigi back into that house and watch him lose his fragile mind. Room by room, ghost by ghost. Suck. While only a couple of hours long and reasonably simple in its mechanics, the game benefits from a lot of replay value in its scoring system, which I'm always trying to perfect each run through. It's a good time, it's fun, it's great, I love it. But if that were all there were to it, I probably wouldn't want to go back. It's the house. That house! This place is more than just a backdrop to the game. It is the game, compelling us to explore beyond the main goal and discover both its history and its rewards, and maybe even learn something about Luigi himself. It's a great example of how to get the most out of your environment. A masterclass in staging. I've said before that video games are closely related to theatre, live events staged to guide the audience through an idea or narrative. Only the difference is that most mainstream theatre doesn't tend to place the audience in the story as direct participants. Sometimes, metaphorically always, but not literally often. You know what does? Theme parks. The primary function is to just provide entertainment on a visceral level. Fast rides for the thrill seekers and corn dogs for anyone near a stomach pump, but the extra element that gives them that immersive edge is in the name. Theme parks. That added level of detail, whereby a story or concept is addressed through the ride's design, can be what gives people that added sense of relation to the experience. Some may appreciate the craft of putting it together as its own work of art, the effort to make it a coherent, cohesive design, though for most, it's the thrill of pretending you're somewhere else entirely. The purest example of this can be found in an old favourite, a ride that has to rely solely on this kind of staging. A ride that, while not fast, is not for the faint of heart. The teacups. Haha, oh B, what a good one, what a switcheroo you pulled there, be still my aching sides. The haunted house has been a staple of theme parks and fairgrounds since forever, often a simple guided tour rather than a fast or intense thrill ride, with a couple of scares thrown in. Most famous is of course Disney's Haunted Mansion, or their Phantom Manor, or their, well, China doesn't do ghosts anymore. There have been a lot of exceptions over the years that play with the ride concept and come up with successful alternatives, but most if not all follow the same thematic principles. The basic conceit, the thing we're all happy to pretend is real, is that this is an inhabited space. Someone lived here, and we're intruding. Efforts are made to establish a presence or person that has dominion, the various clues in the set dressing to what that might be littered throughout the journey for the audience to pick up on. People go mad for this stuff, blogs and sites and videos are written all about them, as if these things are real, leading to repeat rides, though the punchline being that no matter how many times you do this, you can't do anything to stop it. You are a victim. Unless you make use of the exits here, here, here and here. When on the rides, don't do anything naughty. There is another level up. Video games. See, we've come full circle. The player is always a victim in a theme park spook place, but in a game spook place? No. You can be a victim, you can be a hero, hell, in one of my favourites, you're the perpetrator. Run, my children, let your screams ring forth. Leave me the deep dish though, Dragon's Den's about to start. The level of interaction changes depending on the developer's intent, but I found the principles of the staging are almost always exactly the same. A level of detail the player must familiarise themselves with, not as prevalent in other spaces. Getting to know a location intimately, using your own knowledge of the layout, and, as you uncover clues and make observations, even your knowledge of the house's inhabitants. It's all the same thrill of just living in that space, rather than, dying. Only in this medium, you can use that information practically. This kind of experience mostly falls under the label of survival horror, but I think the Spook House principles cross genres, crosses species.
Fish people. Wave master.
It's less survival horror, more just
survival.
I've played a lot of games with spooky houses that are staged so well. But there's one that demonstrates the strengths of how to do it the clearest, and in its own small way, to the fullest.
Hello?
Even before the story starts, Luigi is being toyed with. You've been awarded the prize of a mysterious mansion you promised to meet your big brother at, which turns out to be a gothic nightmare filled with spooky ghosts, with Mario nowhere to be found. Luckily, an old inventor, Professor Egad, who lives nearby, because of course he does, is there to tell you it's a trap, and that together you can turn the table on the spirits. Ghostbusters style. Luigi's given the Poltergust, a vacuum backpack that allows him to suck up ghosts, and that's it. That's what you do. Is great. I love it. You set off to explore the house, clear out the ghosts, and hopefully find out what happened to your lost sibling. But the house isn't playing fair. Yes, there are ghouls and ghosts and all manner of monsters inside to jump at, but the hazards are contained in a tricky space, making you second guess yourself. Lights are dimmed, the doors are locked, except this one. Are those mice? Can I go in that room? Am I... Whoa, what was that? Did you hear that? What? Is any... It's not enough to beat the ghosts, you have to learn how to find them to begin with, as the house does everything in its power to keep its secrets from you. Not that these are terribly head-scratching issues, it's a pretty simple game, but the basic effect is there. I've always maintained the house is a character in its own right, and the way it tries to mess with you only furthers that eerie notion, even when it's in your favour. Part of overcoming this comes down to understanding the visual language of the space. Making a game set in an enclosed environment means there's less distance to cover, but more to fill, because everything in that house has to be built. Many games have avoided this, sometimes due to limitations or on purpose, perhaps recognising the use of those limitations, taking away our access to rooms and objects to make us feel less in control, and lay the atmosphere on thick. But there is an alternative appeal to being able to eventually access the entire space and its contents as we progress, or regret that we ever tried to, piquing our curiosity only to then make us the cat. Being a stylized cartoon gives Luigi's Mansion a massive advantage in filling those rooms. You can design a whole lot of caricatured furniture and spaces simpler and quicker, makes even slight differences between rooms more noticeable. As soon as you enter a door, you have a good idea what the room's purpose is, how it fits in with everything else, and what can and can't be interacted with. Even your map is a great deterrent to being fooled. Like the Spook House rides, everything there is to be noticed to varying degrees and raise your suspicion, and the difference LM beautifully demonstrates is that you're allowed to actually act on those suspicions. Letting the characters stand out in that space is well done too. Environments are given faux photorealistic textures that give them a murkier, off-kilter look, and it backgrounds them nicely against the monsters, who, being ghosts, are already highlighted, but also, like Luigi, are designed with simple block colours and shapes in mind. It's right that the ghosts are simpler in design and more exaggerated than anything else, because you have to read who they are and what they can do a lot faster. You know, when one drops in, the strategy you need to employ before they run away, though they'll still try and catch you off guard with a few distracting extrasensory tricks. I'm a fan of the pink ghost's attempt at distracting you with his constant chatter, as if trying to throw you off its visual rhythm before the knockdown punch. Did I say pink? I meant prick. Prick Ghost. But the stars of the show are the portrait ghosts, a bunch of mini-bosses and in some cases big bosses who hide themselves away in specific rooms of the house. Each is themed appropriately, both to give the player an idea of how to confront them and how they fit into the big picture. Just one look at their fashion sense or their job descriptions lets you know they're all of a totally different era, that they had a life before all this, feeding into the whole oh my god, they're really dead, oh my god, vibe. The theming goes beyond the way they look and act. You know, somewhere along the line the professor said the ghosts came from around the world, but it's clear from reading the bios, the books, and other various clues in the house that they are, by and large, one huge family. They're separated appropriately, regardless of the order of rooms set to be visited. The main family are on the second floor in the same corridor. The servants, entertainers, and dining quarters are on the first floor, and a lot of the house's special guests are rooming in the spare floors above or hiding in the endless junk collected over the years. Shivers the butler, who has a thing for Melody, the piano teacher, roams up and down outside her room like a lovesick teenager as her lilting music drifts through the walls. Nana has a diary entry joking about how she plays pranks on Miss Petunia down the hall. Father Neville keeps a diary on his children. Mr. Lugg sits in the dining room near the servants' quarters, screaming for pudding.
What a character!
It might seem like nerdy, superfluous detail, but it paints a clearer picture of the house's layout and how we're supposed to get involved without hitting us over the head with needless exposition, or taking away from our main goal. It's stuff we can find and choose to get into, or you can just run straight in there and oh no. The story behind the story makes the place really feel like a thriving, spook-filled party. It's actually kinda hollow when they're all gone. Nobody left. It's just me in the house. Strong men also cry. It could probably even be more well utilised, and there's definitely potential for more intense discoveries based on your knowledge of the layout. There's a fantastic example in the 4th stage where lightning strikes the house and all the lights we've turned on are snuffed out, meaning we need to go back into the house, now freshly overrun with spooks, and discover a new ghost, an uncle no less, with the key to the emergency power, hiding in a room of mirrors. That's the only clue you're given. You could do what I did the first time, just check every room with a mirror, or you could realise there's a room on the main family's floor that hasn't been completed, despite clearing it earlier in the game. So you go back and... As things develop, even relationships are formed with certain ghosts who are happy to set aside the tension and have a chat. Another layer of life given to the dead, and making every encounter unpredictable. Madame Clairvoyant is the closest the game comes to giving you a friend. A ghost pretty willing to hand her assistance over to you and help out on your journey, and who willingly gives herself up at the end. Not that you could really tell. For her to sense Mario's presence, you must deliver lost items of his that can be found throughout the house. Each time getting a fortune read that explains what exactly might be going on around here and who might be involved. What's that she said? Bowser? The real greatness of how the situation is staged is what it brings out in Luigi's personality. He's always been the slightly more timid brother in marketing, but it was here where we got a better idea of what that really means. Anybody would be nervous in this scenario, but Luigi is pushed to his limit at every turn, the most exaggerated examples of his personality possible. The location is what provides the opportunity to explore that personality. Everyone remembers his nervous humming in the dark to try and calm himself down, doing anything but. How about the fact there's a button specifically reserved for letting him cry out for his brother? Mario! There's a lot of personality-based feedback to find, whether it's in discovering a scare, an item, or even getting little comments when he scans the various items in the house. However, I think the location brings out more than just fear from his persona, not limited to how he interacts with the world, but how it interacts with him. Various toads, the only thing even more defenseless than he is, are lost in the house, and should you find them and cheer them up, they'll act as save points. It's just a visual thing, but Luigi getting these little fellas to stop crying and them overly congratulating him is the first step to seeing him as someone more capable of heroism and his impact on the Mario universe. It sets the extremes of his journey, that we can see it's possible for him to be seen as a hero, but that he needs to see it in himself. Unfortunately, that's held back by a collective of villains who know how to wreck that confidence. Boy, was this a game that really changed what I thought of the boos. See, Mario's a pretty confident, brave guy, right? When he faces down the boos, they turn shy and look away and try to get him with underhanded sneak attacks. But Mario's not here now. They don't have to pretend they're in trouble to get what they need to done. They know they can screw with Luigi. It's one of my favourite revelations, that the boos treat Luigi differently because they can get away with it, which makes you relate an awful lot more to his perspective. This is why Luigi's enemy has to be ghosts. These things that pretend they don't exist, suddenly popping out and giving him a scare, then ducking out of sight before anybody else can see, well, no wonder the guy's a mess. They're far from threatening in their design, but they're trickier enemies than the brash Koopas, messing with him in ways other than brute force, unless you ask politely. Divine, is that you? We discover they do indeed have a man behind the curtain too. And on this day, Luigi finally gets his own arch-enemy. There had been big boos before and boo-based bosses, god that was hard to say, but there was never any sense that they weren't working for the guy everyone else was working for. Now, for the first time in a 3D Mario, we had a villain taking center stage who wasn't the guy you expected. King Boo is far from just a boo in a hat. He's got this aristocratic bloated sound, and a way of talking to Luigi that pitches him way below his pay grade. It's not so much what he says specifically, but the way he acts and the space he lives in that shows King Boo to be a villain trying to distract from his existence, where he would rather observe the terror and suffering from afar than get his non-existent hands dirty. I never really thought about it before, but putting Mario in a painting is, well, it's kind of the perfect revenge, no? He's a delightfully good baddie, and what's great is how the journey is staged to show off his personality. See, with Mario, it's what you can throw at him physically. I mean, what can he not jump over or square up to eventually? The spectacle is just surface level. With Luigi, it's a mental game. Yeah, okay, it's not deep, but there's a lot going on here. This might be one of my favourite uses of Bowser, cornering Luigi at the tip-top of the mansion, the last guy he has ever been expected to deal with directly, and without Mario to bail him out. Of course, it's not the real Bowser, which is kinda oddly disturbing in its own right, but I don't think it takes away from this great visual of Luigi having to prove himself by beating someone on his brother's level. It also adds to King Boo as someone who's more cerebral, more willing to play mind games with the younger brother. There's nothing in the story to say who Bowser is, or why King Boo knows him, or what he represents in the Mario universe, but we, the audience, do know. And that's a wonderful touch. That kind of shorthand is very theme park-esque. You couldn't do this sort of character study appropriate to Luigi in the world of Super Mario. That's an intrepid space, and traversing it lets us know what kind of intrepid, brave person Mario is. There's just no room to push what it really means to be the nervous younger brother. This staging has a huge payoff, because in this environment is a greater, scarier obstacle with all of the usual control methods removed. Overcoming it is what will make the extremely afraid Luigi look even greater. And maybe it's staged to make him look even, savvier too. See, the thing about Luigi is that yes, he's more scared, and that's what makes him more careful. Mario moves in a linear environment, always looking to the next world hither, thither and yon. Here, Luigi can, at his leisure, scour the house for rewards, squeezing every bit of your surroundings for hidden loot, even tending to plants in the house over a period of time that he can return to for bigger surprises. He's got another angle he can swing here. Luigi might be out of his depth initially, and you can choose to leave it all behind and just get out of dodge, but if you play the house the way it's trying to play you can keep it. Or not. Forever after, Luigi finally had a world of his own to play in. Mario had the Mushroom Kingdom, the Royals had their castles, Donkey Kong and his pals hung out with the Kronks in the filthy swamp, and now Luigi had his ghoulish spook house. Nintendo made sure in pretty much every spin-off game to make that a thing, and it never stopped being a nice nod to a single game's impact. I think that's why we always expected a sequel, and we did get one, many years later, by a new dev team, but it just didn't hit me in the same way. I mean, it's absolutely not bad at all. Part of Nintendo's push to try and create shorter, more rapid-fire experiences for people on the go with handheld consoles, with a number of new mansions that, rather than going deep on the exploration, went deep on the mechanics, the obstacles being puzzles you had to solve, right down to how you needed to defeat the bosses. In a way, it was great that they tried to broaden the possibilities of the concept that made the game incredibly fun to play, but this sadly robbed it of its predecessor's unique qualities, like the lack of portrait ghosts and the chance to really explore at your own pace. It just wasn't framed quite right. You didn't really want to go on the ride more than once. A lot of houses, sure, but never that house. I think back on when I entered it and the surprises inside, the way it changed my perspective, and how it got me into a lot of genres I wouldn't have hit up otherwise. I don't think the game's original appeal has gone unnoticed by Nintendo, however. I see them making efforts to reassess their core franchises, which has had a lot of successes, even if just in showing they're open to experimentation. And I have to wonder if they'll ever stage something like it again. Thanks for watching. Huge thanks to my patrons who fund the show and have helped me get my content out over the last couple months. You guys help an awful lot, and it's great to be able to keep this going, so it's kind of crazy actually. If you'd like to contribute, please consider donating at the link, and check out some of my other works. Until next time, happy haunting. Here's the twist for this October. I'm a ghost. Oh, that was quite a camp ghost actually. Should we try again? No, that's good. Okay.
Curse the progeny of monkeys.